Rhianne woke up to the sun's rays giving her face a friendly nudge. Weird, she could have sworn she'd shut the blinds last night, but perhaps Toto had decided he preferred a sunrise view. She looked around for him, but nope, no Toto in sight. She got out of bed, stretching her arms up high and then bending down to touch her toes. A bit of a challenge after using elf magic the night before. That stuff could really take it out of her. Almost like running a marathon or, trying to assemble flat-pack furniture without the instructions. She'd gone to bed at midnight, and, elf magic or not, she felt like she could do with a few more hours of sleep. She sighed. There was always an excuse to use elf magic. Magic she wasn't supposed to have. But saving the Detra orchid was definitely worth it. The orchid could heal a bunch of tough illnesses, help with arthritis pain, and ease Parkinson's symptoms. After a shower, she wrapped herself in a fluffy towel. She approached the steamed-up mirror, wiping a clear patch with the back of her hand. Peering at her reflection, she gave herself a once-over. Her amber-green eyes, with that sneaky hint of brown at the center, sparkled back, keeping her early anxieties well hidden. She applied some clear gloss to her lips and felt a little better as she took one last look at herself in the mirror. She put on some khaki shorts and a black t-shirt with her landscape business's logo, a simple tea leaf, and slipped on a pair of sneakers. Grabbing a hair tie, she styled her wet hair in a high ponytail. It wouldn't get in the way, and it would soon dry in the heat. Noticing the time, she poured herself an orange juice and took a banana to go. But hey, at least she lived right above her workplace. She'd long ago decided she preferred the company of plants to people. Plus, not having to commute was a win-win. Her apartment was nestled above the private nursery area, a snug one-bedroom setup with a generous bathroom, complete with a bathtub for those long, contemplative soaks. The medium-sized kitchen boasted modern appliances, where she occasionally unleashed her love for whipping up quirky dishes. Not that she had a parade of guests over. It was mostly just Nell. Her employees knew her place was strictly no-go territory. It was an unspoken rule. Enter the boss's lair and risk turning into a potted plant. She headed down to her enclosed garden to check on the Detra orchid. Her shoulders relaxed as she saw it was still as bright and healthy as when she'd last seen it. Smiling, she stepped out of the enclosure and locked it up. It wasn't that she didn't trust Carl or Alice, but she had some rare and pricey plants in there, like the Detra. They weren't illegal, but they would definitely grab the wrong kind of attention. By keeping Carl and Alice out, if anyone asked, they could honestly say they had no clue what was inside. She was pretty sure, though, that they had their guesses. Why else would she have all those extra locks? She could hear gruff voices and headed in that direction. Carl was lifting several heavy bags of fertilizer with ease. The gargoyle was 6'7" and built like a truck. Next to him, his smaller twin, Alice, was lifting just as many. Alice was a mere 6 foot, which was short for a gargoyle. So she tried to overcompensate at every opportunity. It didn't matter that to Rhianne's 5'3", they both looked like giants. It was like working with a pair of friendly skyscrapers. "Hey guys," Rhianne called out before approaching them. She didn't want to end up as the unintended target of a flying bag of fertilizer. There had been a few close calls in the past, and she preferred to avoid becoming a fertilizer casualty. Carl's grin completely changed his face, transforming him from stern to striking in seconds. With his size and the sharpened features of his kind, he was rather intimidating. Or at least he was to anyone who didn't know him. Rhianne considered him a total teddy bear. "Hey boss, how are you?" he greeted her in his deep voice. "I'm good, Carl. Any luck with the ladies last night?" When gargoyles reached the age of 100, their families began in earnest to push them to find a life partner. At the age of 104, both Carl and Alice were being invited to singles parties every month. Carl's blush was adorable. Rhianne smiled at him and patted his lower arm, which was as high as she could reach. "Not as such, boss." Alice flipped her long, blonde braid over her shoulder. "To be honest, most of those events are a total waste of time," she huffed. The potential matches are only interested in what you can do for them, whether it's money or connections. Rhianne frowned at Alice's words. Although her landscape business was successful, she knew it couldn't afford to pay Carl and Alice more than she already did. Sensing Rhianne's hesitation, Alice hurried to add, I mean, we come from a family that owns a diamond mine on the Victorian border. I'm never sure if guys want me for who I am or for my family's money. Frankly, I'd rather be alone. Rhianne hadn't known that Alice and Carl's family were wealthy. They'd never even hinted at it in all their conversations. Come to think of it, though, most of their chats were work-related. Maybe you should try exploring other ways of meeting potential partners, Rhianne said. Carl, who was busy lifting bags, paused for a moment and looked at her. What do you suggest, boss? Rhianne thought for a moment, realizing that she had to offer a solution now that she had brought up the topic. Well, have you thought about exploring your personal interests outside of work? Taking up theatre classes, joining a lawn bowls club, or maybe even a book club could be a great way to meet new people. Alice's face lit up at the suggestion. I've always wanted to take up knitting, she said, her blue eyes sparkling with excitement. Knitting, Alice? Well, you never know, you might find the love of your life in a knitting circle. Knitting didn't sound like the best place to meet another gargoyle to Rhianne, but who was she to argue? Carl, still holding on to the bag of fertilizer, added with a grin, and imagine the cozy jumpers you could make for your future partner. Rhianne offered a bemused smile. You should give it a go, Alice. Before Alice could answer, Rhianne's phone rang. Rhianne automatically answered, Welcome to Tea Leaves Landscapes. Is this Rhianne Alkenn? A flat and hard voice asked on the other side. Yes, Rhianne speaking, she answered. She glanced over at Alice, who had raised an eyebrow at her, and mouthed, Who is it? Rhianne shook her head slightly to signal she didn't know and walked towards her office. This is Detective Senior Sergeant Brett Johannes from the New South Wales Police. I believe you've done consulting with us in the past. We have a case at the moment. Are you able to come to the crime scene at 205 George Street immediately? Rhianne stared at the phone for a second and pursed her lips. Sergeant, I don't believe we've met. The gall of the guy. He wasn't even asking her if she was interested. Yes, I've done a spot of consulting for Senior Inspector Rowley. What's this about? Look, I wouldn't be asking a civilian if I didn't think it was important. How quickly can you get here? His tone was curt, and she could almost imagine the snap of his words like a closing trap. Rhianne felt her hackles rise at his brusque manner. Well, this civilian has a full-time job, so unless you can give me some idea as to why you need me, I'd suggest you find yourself another consultant. Okay, so that was harsh, but the police cases always left a bad taste in her mouth, and while Inspector Rowley had always been polite, this guy wasn't even making an effort. The line was silent for a moment before the sergeant replied, My apologies, he said. I have a high-profile murder and our forensics team isn't sure about the cause of death. There are some unusual aspects. His voice trailed off and then firmed up again. We need to rule out poisoning. I know that with poisons sometimes it's better to act quickly, and so I would, and a meaningful pause ensued, really appreciate it if you could come. Rhianne took a deep breath. Her professional curiosity and his change of attitude made her mind up. Okay, what's the address again? After telling Carl and Alice she needed to zip off to the city, Rhianne made a beeline for her apartment. While her trusty ute was great for deliveries, for a city jaunt, nothing beat her Energica motorcycle, affectionately dubbed G. Parking in the city was about as fun as a game of Tetris on hard mode, and G was her cheat code. She loved any excuse to ride it. The electric speedster could hit 0 to 100 in a breezy 2.6 seconds. Sure, it was summer and hot enough to fry an egg on the sidewalk, but riding in shorts wasn't just a no-go for the bike, it was hardly appropriate for a murder scene. She dashed upstairs, swapped her shorts for jeans, threw on a leather jacket, and slipped into black boots. Back in the garage, she grabbed her black helmet and gloves and vroomed off to the city, nudging the speed limit. Finding a paid car park near the building, she parked G with a smirk. The sergeant could foot the parking bill. As she neared the building, her eyes caught sight of police officers in their distinctive uniforms. As she reached out to open the entrance doors, a burly policeman intercepted her, blocking her path. "I'm sorry, but no one is allowed to enter the building, madam." He spread his arms wide. "I'm here to see Sergeant Johannes," Rhianne said. The policeman eyed her up and down in a way that made her uncomfortable. "Is he expecting you?" Why else would she be here? She squinted at the policeman and straightened herself up. "He told me to hurry, so you can be the one to explain to him why I was delayed. I'll go and sit over there until you speak to him." Rhianne turned around. "Wait!" He raised a finger as his eyes darted to his comms unit. "I'll call him now." The policeman frowned at her as he made the call. Seconds later, though, he bobbed his head. Johanna should have sent someone to fetch her if this was really so urgent, Rhianne grumbled to herself. Almost as if in answer to her thought, a petite woman in a navy pantsuit exited the lifts. As she approached, Rhianne noticed her hair was neatly tied in a low bun, with a few loose strands framing her face. The woman had a small nose and striking dark, slanted eyes, which studied Rhianne with a hint of curiosity. "Rhianne Alkenn?" the newcomer asked. "One and the same," Rhianne said. The woman gave her an assessing glance down to her boots and gave her a nod. Clearly she had passed the visual appraisal. "I'm Sergeant Lisa Chen. Thanks for coming. How far out were you?" Rhianne gave her a brief smile. At least someone was polite around here. "I live on the northern beaches," Rhianne answered. Of course, the Northern Beaches district was a long stretch of coast, so that could have meant anywhere from 15 to 60 kilometers from the city. "Wow, that didn't take you long." "I have a motorbike and tested the speed limit along the way," Rhianne said, and noticed Lisa's eyes spark at that. Recognition hit her in the gut. Lisa was a supernatural of some kind, but it would be rather impolite to ask exactly what type. "Hence the outfit, then," Lisa said. "It's not just a 'I'm a badass' look." Rhianne couldn't help the laugh that escaped her lips as they entered the lift. Lisa hit the top floor button. "I'm a landscape gardener. We're known for being badass. How else would I deal with all the gnomes who tried to eat my roses?" Rhianne tried to keep a serious tone. Lisa laughed. "Gnomes steal pot plants?" "Of course, although they prefer roses, so I keep those in a separate enclosure." It wasn't a total lie, but Lisa's mirth was spurring her on, so she was exaggerating for effect. They were laughing as they walked into a dimly lit corridor teeming with police officers. Their laughter echoed through the space, drawing curious glances from the officers milling about. A dark-haired man in a sharp suit turned around, a deep frown marring what was otherwise a handsome masculine face. Rhianne could sense his disapproving gaze on them, but she couldn't bring herself to care. "Are you Rhianne Alkenn?" There was a note of doubt in his voice, one that Rhianne had heard before. She looked young for 36 years. Most people expected her to be ancient-looking if she was going to be an expert in poisons. Rhianne was determined to divert the conversation from any remarks about her seemingly youthful appearance. Dealing with the too young to be good at this brigade was nothing new for her, and she knew it wouldn't be the last time either. She was all set to prove that age was merely a number, and in her case, a rather misleading one. His frown didn't ease off. "Are you squeamish? I'd prefer not to contaminate my scene." He handed over some plastic booties and gloves. "I guess it depends on how bad it is," she shrugged her shoulders. "Are you Sergeant Johannes?" "In the flesh," he replied. Was that an attempt at humour? It was hard to tell because his tone remained just as serious, but she could have sworn she saw a brief sparkle in his eyes. "Lead the way. Better get it over with." The office was opulent. Sleek glass overlooked the harbour, which sparkled in the morning sun. The desk was made of glass and curved at the edges. The diagonal drawers were slim and crafted in dark timber. She doubted they contained much. On the wall on the left there was a massive bookshelf, filled with books that likely had never been read. They were pristine. On the other wall some bucolic paintings hung. No cushions marred the large taupe leather chairs which surrounded a light-coloured rug. But it wasn't the rug that caught her eye. A middle-aged man was lying on it. He was dressed in a suit that probably cost more than her monthly profit. She assumed he was in his 60s and had enjoyed the good life a bit too much if his protruding belly was anything to go by. His eyes were open and staring at the ceiling. She gradually approached him and carefully knelt down next to him. Rigor mortis had set in, so he must have died the night before. His irises were dilated and his skin had a blue tinge. Most telling was the swollen neck. She lowered herself down and from the corner of her eye saw Johannes tensing his body, his jaw jutting out. She ignored him. He was paying for her services and she needed data. They could get a sample, but she suspected it might be too diluted by then, and the forensics team needed to know what to test for. Aha, there it was, a very faint trace of nutmeg. She slowly backed off, got up, and then went walking around the office to see if she could detect it elsewhere. She approached one of the walls with an interesting landscape painting, when suddenly the wall opened like a door, almost hitting her in the process. "Ah," she managed, before a guy in jeans and a Pink Floyd t-shirt looking down at a tablet in his hand stepped in front of her. "Hey, watch out," Rhianne said, rolling her eyes at the guy's obliviousness. She muttered under her breath, must be navigating the digital realm of the Wall album cover. He raised his eyes from his tablet and stepped back, apologizing. "I'm sorry, I didn't see you there." Rhianne noticed his striking, stormy blue eyes and the shock of bright red hair. A sudden blush painted his neck and cheeks crimson. She laughed. She couldn't help it. Well, you know, secret doors and tablet reading are not conducive to seeing obstacles. At that, he blushed deeper, and Rhianne decided he was rather cute. He blinked and then grinned. "I don't think I'd call you an obstacle. I'm Kai." They shook hands. "I'm Rhianne. I take it you're with the police." He shook his head. "Just a mere consultant," he said. "You?" Rhianne snorted. "Not sure. What's below mere consultant?" A decisive cough stopped their conversation. They both turned in unison to look at Sergeant Johannes, who didn't look impressed at their banter. Maybe he felt it was cutting into his consulting time. "What did you find?" Johannes asked, seemingly to whoever wanted to answer. Rhianne and Kai looked at each other and she gestured for him to go first. It pleased her that he didn't argue. Lisa stepped up closer to Johannes and gave Kai a small nod and a slight smile. Kai looked down at his tablet again. There are no viruses in his devices, but some emails and files have been recently deleted, and by recently I mean yesterday. Most people think deleting files is all that's required, but they simply go to the recycle bin. Rhianne suspected this was a sentence he said often, because it was recited in an almost bored tone. Johannes perked up at his words. "However," Kai continued, apparently unaware of the clear disappointment displayed on both Johannes's and Lisa's faces, "whoever did this was a bit more savvy than that and also deleted them from the recycle bin." "So the information is lost?" Lisa said. "Not necessarily," Kai answered. "Not necessarily," Lisa repeated. Luckily, it was Lisa prompting him because Johannes looked like he was ready to shake Kai. "I'll run a full scan. It's possible that some things would have been saved earlier or emailed, or there may be drafts. If there are, I'll find them. Of course, it might be nothing. Files get deleted all the time." He looked up at Johannes this time. He clearly knew the drill. "It'll take me at least 24 hours, and I'll need all his devices." Johannes shifted his gaze to Lisa. "Get the relevant permissions." Lisa didn't pause to question what he meant. Johannes turned to Rhianne. "Did you find anything?" His tone implied he didn't think she had, and his eyes went down to his phone. Rhianne almost smiled, but decided that would be unprofessional. "I did, actually." Johannes's eyes snapped up, and Kai locked eyes with her. Lisa paused in her phone call and turned to face them. "He was definitely poisoned," she said. "Are you sure?" A deep scowl marred Johannes's face. "You know, you should try smiling more. Frowning like that will add years to your face. Not that your ever-cheerful attitude won't beat it to the punch," Rhianne quipped. Her remark earned a stifled grin from Kai, who tried to hide it behind his hand, and a full-blown smile from Lisa. Johannes stared at her, unamused. "You wouldn't have called me here if you didn't think I knew my stuff," Rhianne crossed her arms. "The poison is likely Roman. It's found in specialist nurseries, mine included." She believed in being upfront. "In tiny doses, it's used for treating certain types of seizures, including epilepsy." but in a concentrated dose, it's fatal in about 5 minutes, and it wouldn't have been a good way to go.